About 18 years ago, I was a trauma nurse practitioner at a level one trauma center. The trauma team was activated and we all responded. And by we, I mean me, the trauma nurse practitioner, the trauma surgeon, the emergency physician, the trauma nurse team leader, the emergency nurse, the radiology tech, the lab tech, a pharmacist, and the emergency tech. And the team was a familiar team. We weren't new to each other, having worked many traumas together. And we were waiting together for this particular trauma. And at times we would have a delay in patient arrival, especially if they were being flown in. And for us that day, there was a little over an hour wait time, which is longer than usual. Our radiology tech was in nursing school at the time, and so I asked him, "How's it going?" And the next thing I know, we're all talking about our personal schooling, how long it took us, 2 years for one person, 12 years for another. Um, we made jokes around professional stereotypes. We told some short stories, and then somehow we started talking about the edge of practice of our roles, what we were trained to do, but that we don't necessarily do in our hospital because other professions in the hospital do it. We shared about what we think about when trauma events occur, our different ways and our different processes that we have to worry about that drive our individual actions. The nursing supervisor is constantly asking about family members. The trauma surgeon is asking about what's going on in the OR. There were two patients that night, one coded. We gave 24 bags of blood in their care. And the way we worked together that night, different, fluid, smooth, efficient. 2 weeks later, as we were waiting for another trauma, it was the same team, maybe plus or minus one or two people. We found out that these patients were still alive. And not only were they alive, we were told that they were actually on a good pathway to recovery. I particularly remember how shocked we all were. And looking back, I'm not at all surprised because I believe it was that hour before their arrival that saved those patients' lives. And that's the core of what I'd like to talk about today. What was it in that hour that saved patients' lives, and how can we bring this? How can we work to achieve this, each of us, in the education that we provide? It bothered me to think, how is it after 5 years of practicing, for the first time, I really understood what teamwork, collaboration, interprofessional practice could look like. And as I started getting more and more interested in this, I wanted to understand the extent of this gap, not just in my own education, but in all of healthcare education. And what we do know is that if we don't collaborate the way we did that night, these are the costs. Medical errors due to poor communication, conflict between professions. When we don't learn how to work together, we create adverse events despite speaking up of a nurse, and it might not be reported. We create lifelong patients due to iatrogenic outcomes when we can't figure out how to work together. Increased length of stay, higher costs of care. The list, it goes on and on and on. And when I look at this list, I think to myself, if your parent, your partner, your child was a victim of this statistic, is that okay? We know that we need to collaborate, and we know that the precursor to that is education on how to collaborate, or interprofessional education, which you'll hear me refer to as IPE. There is an increasing recognized need and a huge push for IPE for these very reasons. We know this. We're trying. If the World Health Organization, the National Academy of Medicine, the Society for Simulation Healthcare, National League for Nursing, uniprofessional and patient safety focused organizations are pleading us to do IPE in a way where we can learn with, from, and about each other. And due to the nature of our profession, how we overlap with different departments, we are naturally being positioned to do this. You, as simulationists, simulation educators, simulation technicians, researchers, health professions educators, you are uniquely positioned to do IPE. The particular setting within which learning occurs is vitally important. What we're finding is that simulation is perhaps the best platform for IPE. It is certainly becoming the preferred platform for IPE. Why? Because of what we know about adult learning, experiential learning, situational learning, emotional learning, deliberate practice. We need immediate feedback in order to improve. In healthcare simulation, you can engineer any experience to be relevant to any profession that you decide to include. How powerful is that? So we're seeing that we need to do IPE, and we're seeing that we should use simulation. So great, let's do it. We're going to dive in and we're going to do it together right now. So I'm going to play a video of a simulated case. This case, by the way, it's not real. It's not an actual simulation. It was created for purposes like this. I'd like for you to view the video as if you were the educator and these are your learners. These are learners that are doing things that you might expect them to do and things you might not expect them to do, all spectrums possible, as you know, as educators. And I want you to watch this as if you will be debriefing them after the simulation. This is a post-thyroidectomy patient who has an expanding hematoma that is compromising her airway. This is a case that you might create to explore the management of airway emergency and steps for speaking up between a nurse and a resident. We have two participants or learners who we are going to watch, Rory and Tina. Rory is a surgical resident and Tina is a graduating nursing student. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play this simulated case, and then afterwards, as I play it, I want you to think about how you're feeling while you're watching your students here. So to review, I want you to think as though you are the simulation educator running this simulation and the debriefing. I'm going to play this case. You're going to observe your learners, Tina and Rory. And as soon as I'm done playing, I want you to write down one reaction that you have as you watched your learners. So let's play the video.
Yeah, hi, Rory. Yeah, this is Tina. I'm the nurse over here in 5C, and I'm calling about a patient. Remember Mrs. Cullen who had a thyroidectomy, a total thyroidectomy this morning? Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Well, she's not looking that good right now. I think you need to come over and see her right away. Uh, I really need you. I really need you to come right now. It, uh, listen, here I can settle this. I can call your attending, and your attending can come over and see Mrs. Cohen right away. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Good. I'll see you shortly. Okay, get here as fast as you can. Yeah.
Hey,
Lori,
what's
it's
going
so
on,
good
Tina?
to see you. Well,
What's
look,
going on?
look at her. Look at her.
Okay.
You need to do something.
Mrs. Cohen? Mrs. Cohen, this is Dr. Cartwright. Are you in any pain?
This isn't pain.
Mrs. Cohen?
This isn't pain. You got to do something. She's not breathing.
You have a stethoscope or something?
She's not breathing. You got to do something.
Mrs. Cohen, I'm going to take a quick listen real quick to your breaths, okay? Nice deep breaths.
You got to do something.
How long have your stats been like this?
It's been since I got off the phone with you. They've just been dropping down.
Alright, I need you to call the code team, call anesthesia, and call the OR immediately. We need to get her back in there now.
We don't have time for all that. I can press the code blue button.
Well, I need you to call the code.
You got to do something.
Alright, well,
We don't
need to
have time
get
to take her
everyone on
back
board.
to the operating room.
There you go. We'll do that. I need to go call my attending.
Come on.
Well, what's going on here? I heard you had it.
Yeah, I was just gonna call you.
This is an expanding hematoma. You gotta open it.
Okay.
Give me a suture kit right away.
All right.
Right away.
Yep. Okay.
This is Colin. Yeah. Okay. Give me a suture kit. Get in here and help me out.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
All right. Get some suction.
Okay.
Get in here and help me out with that suction.
Okay.
Okay. Keep that suction going.
Okay.
This is Colin. This is Colin. Take a deep breath. This is Dr. Bayfield. Take a deep breath for me. Get the suction in there. Keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime you have an expanding hematoma, you have to open it. You have to open it right away.
All right. Understood.
Get that suction in there. Good. Okay. Yeah, you open it right at the bedside here. Anytime. Expanding hematoma, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Think expanding hematoma. Open.
Okay. Understood.
Okay, so now I'd like you to write down 1 or 2 or 3 reactions that you had while you were watching your learners in this simulation. So take a moment to do that. And they might look something like this. And as I minimize this screen, I'd like for us to do that internally as well. So just to clarify, I don't want you to close out or X out of your emotions. I don't want you to dismiss them in any way. They are important. I want you to just minimize or bystand your emotions for a few minutes in a way where we can think of something else together. So now what I'd like for you to do is I want you to think about this question. I want you to list 1, 2, or 3 things that you hope for Rory and Tina to walk away with in your time with them. What do you think is crucial for them to learn based on what you just saw? You can think of it as after this simulation and debriefing, what would you like them to do or think better next time? So go ahead and write that down. Okay, so now that we know what we're looking to achieve in the debriefing, and it might be listed in one of these goals here, let's go to the debriefing. So now we're in the debriefing and I'm sitting down with Tina and Rory. And after getting their initial reactions, I might ask a question to explore the thoughts that drove their actions. I want to know how they think. I want to get to that deeper level of trying to find out why they did what they did. So my question to Tina and Rory might sound a little bit like this. I'd like to talk about managing acute respiratory distress. Tina, there was a point where I heard you say that Mrs. Cohen wasn't breathing and to do something. And Rory, I heard you say that we have to go back to the OR. And, I was getting worried that Mrs. Cohen would stop breathing and that she might actually go into respiratory arrest. What was going on for each of you at that time? Okay, so what I like for you to do is write down one thought as either Tina or Rory that might have been going on for you. And as you do this, I also want you to work under the assumption that Tina and Rory they were doing the best that they could do. Okay, so here are our reactions. Here are our learners' thoughts. And then way over here, this is what we're looking to achieve. So somehow we have to get from here to here. You know, what we do, it's not easy. And as educators, it is our ethical responsibility to find ways to bridge this gap for our learners. So I'd like to offer us a reframe. Let's not think of this as a daunting gap. Let's think of it as a one-time opportunity. When will you have Rory and Tina again in the same room with you? Hopefully feeling safe enough to discuss their performance, this exact performance that basically identified for you where you can help them learn. When will you have that opportunity again? So this is where you have the creative licensure to get them from here to here. The educator dilemma then becomes, how do I take advantage of this one-time opportunity? How do I create deep interprofessional learning? And our learners, they are adult learners. They learn when they want to learn. They might not learn by the time your session ends with them, but maybe weeks later, months later, years later. But how do we create an experience that is sticky enough for them to reflect on later? Or how do I create an experience that they can learn from during their very short time with me and sticky enough that they can take it to their practice so that in my short time with them, I am able to touch a patient and that patient's outcome? What I have come to find is that it takes these four ingredients, and I'll unpack each of these one at a time. So before I unpack each of these comments, I need to thank my colleagues at the Center for Medical Simulation, because my mentors, Jenny Rudolph, Robert Simon, Dan Raymer, Jeff Cooper, have really worked with me over the last several years to massage these concepts, really practice them to shape them into what I present to you today. In healthcare, I see boundaries as the differences in who we are and how we think dressed in our profession. The problem is we can't see how another person thinks. The only way for us to see how another person thinks is by telling us what they're thinking by talking. And it is really difficult to talk with someone who you feel like you have nothing in common with, and much easier when it is with someone who you think you do have something in common with. A common experience gives purpose for talk. In sociology, there is a well-known concept of boundary objects. A boundary object is a physical object that is used in different ways by different communities. So to simplify, you can think back to art class. All of us have been in art class at one point or another, and likely we've all had to paint or draw a fruit bowl. So think about walking around, looking at one art student to another. Every interpretation is different because of our different skills, our different angles, our different perspectives. Our different abilities, yet the fruit bowl is the same and recognizable to all. So while a boundary object can be interpreted in different ways, it is immutable enough to maintain a common identity throughout the communities. In healthcare, a boundary object might look like this: a blood pressure reading. Bring a group together and they all use this information differently. This is important to us because boundary objects are seen in sociology to be key in developing and maintaining teams that are composed of different professions. We can create a boundary object by creating a common experience. And what this can do for us is that by having a common experience or a boundary object, it sets up an appreciation for differences. To change the tone of a conversation by giving it purpose, to go from "you are so different, just keep doing what you're doing, I'll keep doing what I'm doing," to "that's interesting that you see it that way because I see it this way and I could see why you see it that way." It allows us to be open to perspectives and it allows appreciation for differences. The next ingredient is to creating deep interprofessional learning is something that is 100 times more difficult than it appears here or as it is stated here, and I find this to be crucial. You are the vehicle for your learners and their learning. The problem is that we make assumptions and we make them really quickly. We have reactions. And it's okay to have reactions. It's normal. It's what we do with them that matters. So according to Chris Argyris, with every event, there is a pool of data. And because we're human, we can't take in all of the information that happens with one event. Instead, we naturally select data from an event. So for example, you might have a trainee or a student that is late for 2 clinical rounds. So we've selected that data. We then name it. Very naturally, we'll quickly name it. Okay, this student or trainee is irresponsible. We then quickly draw conclusions. This student is not going to be a good practitioner because they are irresponsible. And the problem that Chris Argyris points out is that there are 2 recursive loops that happen in this concept. The first loop is that we take actions once we have drawn conclusions to grab more data. So for example, I might now be following that student around during their hospital clinical shift, and I'm going to now create more observations. The second, more problematic loop is that the conclusions that we draw tell us which data to select. So while I might be following that student around, I am going to be selecting the information that proves that I'm right, that this student is not going to make a good practitioner. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when we have reactions, that means that we've made assumptions and we're up our ladder of inference. And we as educators have the responsibility to find ways to climb down the ladder that we are up. At the Center for Medical Simulation, we call one method the basic assumption. So we literally need to minimize our reactions and our assumptions in a way where we can hear what our learners have to say. And so the basic assumption to us is the crux of education, of teaching and learning. It is so important to us that we have it on our walls. We read it with every course that we provide. I'm going to read it to you right now. We believe that everyone participating in activities at CMS is intelligent, is capable, cares about doing their best, and wants to improve. So when I first read this, I thought, oh, that is so sweet. And over time, it has become my biggest problem as an educator. It is very difficult to hold on to. So let me give you an example. Have you ever had a student where you were like, how did you get this far in the program? Instead, you have to think, you're intelligent, you made it this far in the program, what am I not seeing? Have you ever had a student where you're like, he just doesn't care, he's not even trying? Instead, think, he's capable, he cares about doing his best, he wants to improve, and I need to figure out what's holding him back. So, holding the basic assumption puts us in a stance of curiosity, which puts us in a better position to flex with our learners and meet them where they are, to really listen to them and to figure out where their true needs are. So, the interesting thing about being up this ladder is that your students can feel it. They can feel when you really want to help them and you're truly curious. Just like when you are talking with someone and you feel like they think you're stupid, you could feel that. Your students can feel that too. They can also feel when you are truly curious and truly want to help them improve. So when we have these reactions, it means that we are way up the ladder already. They can feel that. And we need to find a way to anchor us down the ladder of inference. And we feel that the basic assumption is the best anchor for this. The next ingredient is all about discussion, creating for your learners conversation. So Anderson and Gulishian talk about meaning systems. In order to create new meanings, individual meanings must first be revealed and shared. So I like to think of this as the six blind men and the elephant. The most efficient way to figure out together that it is an elephant is to talk and share the information that each person has. For us to get to common ground, we first need to understand what's tying us down. So healthcare is no different. We each have a piece of the puzzle and we need to share what's going on with that patient. The fourth ingredient is a tool that leverages a common goal in a way where a group can discuss a solution that would work for all of them, taking into account everyone's differences. So to do this, you first need to illuminate the boundaries, acknowledge the differences, and steer the conversation with the common goals. So it might look like this. So these four ingredients, I think that they are heavy ingredients to swallow. So I want to make them bite-sized by making them more tangible for you. So let me show you what I mean by these four ingredients by rewinding and reviewing what we had done just a few minutes ago with Rory and Tina. For having a common experience in simulation-based education, the simulation is the boundary object. You can pause and describe objectively anything that happened in the case and use that to discuss boundaries. For checking in with yourself, we did this. You might recognize this. And all of us had some sort of spectrum, emoji spectrum, most of us more to the right side of this. And I asked you to minimize these reactions. And so we minimize them, and then it's our goal or our role to overlay our emotions with the basic assumption in a way where we can get ourselves to a stance of curiosity to help guide the learners to the goals that we are hoping for. In creating shared meaning through discussion, this is the value and the importance of debriefing. It is why it is the heart of learning. We need to be able to reveal perspectives to create shared meaning. And then finally, problem solving toward a common goal. So we didn't do this. And in the times when I'm not sure what step it is that I need to take next in a debriefing, usually when I feel like there might be conflict between one or two parties, I start to feel paralyzed during that conversation. Let's give Rory and Tina some kind of spicier frames here. So some things that they might be thinking about and that they might verbally say that may elicit conflict within the debriefing. So So the way I would use this technique might sound something like this. So I'm hearing you say, Tina, that Rory never listens to you. And, I know what that feels like when you feel like someone's not listening to you. And Rory, I'm hearing you say that Tina calls you all the time. And I know what that feels like when you're busy and you're getting a lot of calls from the same person. Um, so here's the thing, guys. We really need to make sure that Mrs. Cohen doesn't go into respiratory failure. So when you are feeling this way, what are things that we can do so that we can keep Mrs. Cohen safe? You might then start exploring scripting for Tina, maybe S-bar, that's acceptable to both parties. You might explore with Rory, his communication and his role in the communication, and asking Tina for what she was thinking. So finding a common goal is easy in simulation because it is usually about patient safety. And in my experience, when you use those two words, it defibrillates egos and it illuminates how the difference that we are having in those moments interferes with keeping our patients safe. And this is achieving deep interprofessional learning. When I think about my trauma experience 18 years ago, it has become my professional mission to understand what was in that hour that saved patients' lives and how can we bring it to the education that we provide. I truly believe that it is bringing people to a level of mutual respect and appreciation that we are all different, and an appreciation that we all have something in common in that we all care, and that one person alone can't meet the needs of our patients, that patients need all of us as individuals with individual expertise and perspectives to work as a team. And I believe that in order to achieve this, these four ingredients is a good starter kit. So there are many things that I was wrong about over the years that I realized quite painfully. And to close this talk, that I thought I would explicitly share some of these. I used to think that learning is by doing. And what I've come to realize is that learning is by you. You will need to create the learning by doing and by also modeling in your practice. I used to think that boundaries make collaboration challenging and that we need to go beyond boundaries to learn together. And I've come to learn that learning is at the boundaries, that boundaries make collaboration interesting. I used to think that simulation was the solution, and I've come to realize that simulation is a powerful diagnostic tool, if not the most powerful learning diagnostic tool, and that you are the solution. You are the vehicle for achieving collaboration as simulation educators. Thank you.